Welcome, everyone. We're just getting started. Folks are coming in. Thank you and welcome. And we're just having fun pressing buttons. I don't see my Karen, do you see the AI summary button? Why am I not getting my summary button?
I see, yes. Do you want me to hit start summary?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Let
Thank
me see
you.
if is there something that, oh, okay. Yeah, it's on.
Great. Thank you, friend. And then let me get that slideshow back working from the beginning. Okay, great. We're going to admit a few more folks. People are joining us. Yay. All right, it's 12:01. I am so excited to get started. So I think I'm going to turn over the admitting possibilities to Karen so she can let folks in. And I feel like we'll get started, right? I am so excited. Welcome to day 3. This is the final day of our 3rd annual Joining Our Voices Symposium. This is on envisioning the future of serious illness care. The last 2 days, we have had wonderfully engaging sessions. On Wednesday, we are in this together, how the caregiving crisis affects us all and what we can do about it. And then yesterday, our Halloween spooky edition of our symposium was on the future of AI to improve care and caregiving. For those who missed either of the sessions, we do have recordings. They will be available within the next few weeks on the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition website. Please take a moment to go ahead and put your name and your organization, if you're representing one, in the chat. And you can also feel free to add what made you interested in joining this today's session, our My Superpower event. You can also use the chat throughout the session if you have questions. I will do my best to track them. My wonderful colleague and close friend Karen Appert will also be monitoring the chat line, because after the documentary, we'll be able to open up. I have a ton of questions and I know you will too, so feel free to add those. In terms of other logistics, we ask that you do keep your microphones muted unless you're our speakers. You get to unmute yours. And also, if you want, for better viewing, you want to be in the speaker view for Zoom, because we will be spotlighting all of our panelists. I want to give a huge thank you to my colleagues at the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities for making live captioning available during the event. We have our closed captioner, Sierra. She is joining us. Thank you so much. There's a link in your chat line for those of you who want to be able to use our option. And really, the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, this was a wonderful donation, and they did this all 3 days of the session. I love that. Thank you. So now for me, I am Heather Altman. I am the Executive Director of the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition. We are a statewide group of health professionals and providers and advocates and caregivers, all focused on improving the lives of the seriously ill of all ages and their caregivers. Through collective engagement of our active work groups, we address clinical practice and quality, advanced care planning, and caregiver and patient engagement through a variety of communication, advocacy, and education events. And this is a great example of it. This is our 3rd year doing our Joining Our Voices Symposium. And so you are all welcome to join the coalition. I know some of you are not from North Carolina. In fact, our speakers today, most of them, or a good group of them, are from Washington State, I think. And so they've gotten up early, but you are all welcome to join the coalition. There is no cost. To learn more about the coalition, you can go to our website. I think it's up on the screen also, www.ncsicoalition.org. I'll also keep an eye on the chat. If you want to be added to the listserv and you're not already on it, you can add your email address and I'll take it off and make sure I I can add you to our listserv. Don't worry, I don't bombard. We do about 2 or 3 emails a month just highlighting our upcoming events. I want to take some gratitude moments. Many thanks to so many coalition members for developing this symposium over the past few months. I want to extend my gratitude and special recognition to the members of the Caregiving and Patient Engagement Work Group and the North Carolina Caregiving Collaborative, led by the truly inspirational and wonderful Karen Appert, who is on here. Thank you, Karen. The whole group supported this event, and they even let us take over, or we let us take over, I'm part of that group, our monthly meeting. We normally meet the first Fridays of the month at 12 o'clock and said, you know what, it's better to do my superpower. So for those of you part of the Caregiving Collaborative, thank you for letting us take over our monthly meeting. But truly, none of this would have been possible if not for Elaine Altman. That is not a coincidence, our last names. She is my aunt. Thank you, Elaine. I am so thrilled you're joining us today. And back in April, I looked, it was 7 months ago, she sent me an invitation to view my superpower through the New Hope Film Festival. Oh, I see my Uncle Edward walking around there too. Hello, Edward. So they invited me to view online the New Hope Film Festival. And immediately after viewing my superpower, like immediately after, I emailed Elaine and asked if there was any way we could bring this to the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition. And Elaine connected me with Kim Robinson over at the Children's Tumor Foundation. We bonded, had a great talk, and they said, sure, you can have access to this. I really appreciate it. So here we are. To my Aunt Elaine, thank you so much. We'll talk later on about your connection and how you got involved. And to my friends at the Children's Tumor Foundation, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sure. And then I'm so honored and excited that not only were we giving the blessing to show the documentary, but perhaps even better, we have the film stars with us. Today, I'm seeing giggles. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight them now. We're going to add some spotlights. We have Kat and Krista to talk about it. We have we're gonna have everyone introduced, but I am so happy that we have the film stars. We have other loved ones touched by neurofibromatosis and staff of the Children's Tumor Foundation. So what I want to do now, if I can do it quickly, is go ahead and spotlight. I'm going to stop my share. I hope you all enjoy this opening picture, but I'm making it go away because I want to go ahead and spotlight all of our wonderful panelists today. Elaine, I am spotlighting you too. Great. I think that's the whole team. Did I get everyone? I think so. If you can go ahead, and I'm going to turn it over first to Kat and Krista and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Catalea. I'm Krista Castanon. I am Kat's mom. And, as Heather said, Catalea is actually the star of the documentary and an NF1 patient.
Well, we are gonna get all into your story by watching the documentary and then prepare. We're gonna ask you all kinds of questions, and I know the other folks joining will be asking questions too. Vanessa, you're in my next box. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Younger. I am a VP of Communications at the Children's Tumor Foundation, and it was really my honor to work with Kat and Krista and Elaine and the filmmakers on this film. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. Thank you. Kim, I have great memories of sitting in my car in a parking lot. I think while my kid was taking driving lessons, I don't know, but I was loving everything about you, and you really made this happen once Elaine gave us the connection. Can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I work at the Children's Tumor Foundation. I'm an individual giving officer there, but I'm not only a staff member of the foundation, I am also an NF mom to a 24-year-old son. So I have been in CTF's world for the past 23 years. So I am very happy to be here, and I'm glad that you were doing this and spreading the awareness that we so critically need.
Well, I am very happy to finally see your picture, to meet you, and your story is incredibly powerful as well, and I'm excited to dive into it a little bit later. And then Cheryl, we have a fun connection, so I'll let you add how you got connected.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cheryl, and I am actually married to Kevin, who is Elaine and Edward's nephew. And that is how I got connected with Heather. And Kevin is my husband, who unfortunately is at work, so he could not be here, but he has an F1. And Krista and Kat live about maybe 20-30 minutes, depending on traffic, away from us, which is pretty cool. And we actually got to meet in person recently, and Kat and I had a great time dancing with my boot on my foot. So that was a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited too. And you and I are both nieces of Elaine, but different sides of the family.
Yes.
But we decided that makes us cousins too, in a fun way.
Right.
And now the woman who brought us all together. Hello, Aunt Elaine.
Hi.
And what's your connection to all of this?
Well, I became a supporter of the Children's Tumor Foundation many years ago because several members of my family had NF. And a CTF was really the leading organization that was involved with research and patient care for this genetic disorder. So I started out supporting research projects that CTF was doing. And then a couple of years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something a little more proactive. And I contacted CTF and made a proposal asking if they would get involved in making a film about young people with neurofibromatosis. And that's how this all started.
Well, I love that. I love the way that you have helped to raise awareness, and that you sent out then the note to a bunch of your friends and your family members and said, hey, we commissioned this documentary. Why don't you take a look? And I was like, okay. And then I went, oh, this is awesome. So thank you, thank you, thank you to you. And to Uncle Edward. Some of you know Edward is my father's brother, Stuart. Stuart has been on different Serious Illness Coalition events. And so it's really fun that, yeah, the Altmans try to get involved in different ways to help advance important healthcare topics. I think we have folks joining us. I think it's probably a good time to go ahead and launch, what do you all think, the documentary, and then we'll come back around and start pummeling you with loving questions. How's that?
Sure. Sounds great.
Okay, great.
I think I'm sharing.
Yes.
All right, so I'll get this going. It takes a few minutes to get going. So if you notice the screen is black for a little bit, that's by design.
And it's about a 10-minute video.
That's correct. Yeah.
Are we able to hear it? Can everyone hear it? We don't hear it, Vanessa.
At all? Or
Yeah.
it's just faint?
Did you click the share with sound button when you shared it?
I thought, let's try again. I'm gonna stop share. Let's try this. Sound?
Not yet.
No.
Kim, when we tried it out before we started, you heard it then, correct?
Yep, it was working earlier.
Huh.
This is like me. I tried things this always happens. I tried mine before and then and it was working well and then my internet connection got a little weird.
Yeah, we did give this a try. I'm sure there's a fix.
It sounds like it was giving a little bit of a sound. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a delay or.
I heard like music and then it went silent.
Yeah, I heard like a tiny smidge and then nothing.
Okay, well. Hold on.
Oh,
I think I clicked the right buttons. Hold, please.
And if not, I can try my version. Here we go.
Let's back it up just a smidge.
Yay.
So life with NF, it can be hard at times. My friends say I'm really strong, and my family thinks I'm really strong to handle all the stuff that I've been through without any tears most of the time. That was good.
Kat, she was born on Christmas Eve. 2 months after she was born, I started seeing like spots on her. So I Googled like multiple birthmarks, and this word came up, which was neurofibromatosis. I was scared because when you look up NF, not only can it cause tumors to grow on nerves throughout your body, but it can cause like disfiguration. It could cause blindness, deafness, dismemberment. So we went up to Seattle Children's Hospital. They did a genetic test on her. And a year from the day that she was born, we found out she had neurofibromatosis officially.
I worked very hard on this picture. Beautiful. Can you tell me about it? Yes. I painted some red.
Kat is a beautiful, compassionate person. Knowing that your child has something that is incurable, it's been a challenging experience. It's been something where we've had to train ourselves to be in the moment with everything.
Are you going? Oh, you are? Yeah. Especially when kids are younger, we have to be mindful of how we want to communicate with the children.
She was making me run when I had my biopsy when I wasn't supposed to run until
being able to understand her medical condition a little bit more, that has brought about some of the other challenges with that too. We always want to shield our kids from hardship as much as possible. That's not very realistic. We feel like we are a nice united front and talked about what the next steps are.
I am visually impaired. That's what they call it. And what that means is that if you said, "Hey Kat, do you see that sign?" I'd be like, Where? Or, "Hey Kat, do you see that car coming? Where is it coming from?" The tumor in my eyes, I could become blind forever. And that is really scary for me. I do get scared of that happening because I want to see the whole world. I want to see like how the world changes, because in the future the world is going to change. I can promise you that right now. I basically know how to read another language, bro. It's not an easy thing. It's really, really hard to learn. It's harder than you could ever imagine. There's many things I can't do. Like my friends can play light up dodgeball in the gym, but I can't do that because I can hardly even see the balls coming and going. So I just mostly play on the swings with my friends because swinging on the swings, it helps me like with my anxiety.
I was about 8 or 9 when I found out about Kat's tumors. You know, it was definitely a progressive moment of not knowing at such a young age what that is. I mean, it's super scary. You know, this is family and this is someone that I want to spend the rest of my life with.
When she was in judo. Being able to handle it emotionally as we've gone through these years. And just when you think you're as tough as you can be dealing with it, something else pops up and it just kind of brings you back to being worried and scared again.
Last year, when Kat was ready for her MRI again, I could tell the minute Dr. Sato came in, something was going on. She said there's this other spot on her brain sitting on top of the thalamus, and it had tripled in size in 3 months' time. And that was really scary because it's inoperable.
I like to play checkers.
I know you do.
This is gonna be a long game.
All right, so I'll make the first move.
My doctor, Dr. Sato, and we got a call from her. She said I had to start a new chemo. I don't want to start a new chemo. I was surprised because I was like, I just don't like chemotherapy. It's hard because it makes me feel nauseous, headaches, and tummy aches, and it makes me get sick really, really easily. Last year, I missed way more days of school than I could probably even count. My NF can cause death, so I could die and be in heaven forever. And my sister and my family and my friends, only being able to see them from up high in heaven, that's scary because I'll never be able to hug them again. They'll never be able to hear my voice. I get scared of that really happening because family is really important to me.
I really bury myself in work. I do that because if I have a moment to pause and I think about things like I am right now, I get really worked up. Because I'm scared, because I'm tired, I'm stressed, and I'm just like, I am doing the best I can.
I was just super like alone. I felt really out of like the loop of what was going on with my sister. And honestly, I just feel like I really just didn't have that support system growing up, honestly. And I just had to maneuver a lot of things my own way. It's really hard seeing your little sister cry out of pain because she's hurt and you can't do anything about it. Even though like she's going through so much, like she will literally like be the one holding us, telling us like it's okay.
I don't think of NF as a disability. I think of it as a superpower. I think as a unique.
Come on, open it up, open it up, open it, open it up. Get her, Paisley. There you go, good job.
My third grade teacher, Miss Watkins, said, when you cry, that's showing more of your bravery than not crying. I have a loving family who's going to care for me, who's going to love me. Family's forever.
All right, I'm already seeing, yes, wow, just wow. I've seen it 4 times and it gets me every time. So you're already seeing the thank you coming in. So Kat and Krista, you can unmute because we've got some questions for you. I've
Okay.
got questions for all of you, but I'm going to start with the two of you. What is it like? Well, first, Kat, would you mind sharing how old you are? I'm 54, so I feel like let's just be on. I'm 54. How old are you?
I am 11 years old. I'm turning 12 here in about another month.
Okay, great. All right. So, what's it like to see your story being shared with the world?
I kind of like it. I like spreading awareness for NF because not many people like are educated, know about it. Like at school, like not many kids are like on social media. I mean, they're on social media but don't have like Facebook and stuff like that. And they obviously don't know me or know about NF. So when I tell them about it, it's hard for them to understand. And like if I'm like, do your parents have Facebook, go see my documentary. And then sometimes they can like reflect and be like, oh, this is what she meant by NF. This is what she meant by chemotherapy. This is what she meant by sick.
Yeah. Well, you're at that interesting age of 11, so I don't want to get in a parent issue of like, do you have Instagram and Facebook? But I'm thinking you could have some followers there and be able to share your story and also to other children your age about how to be more understanding and aware of the differences each of us have.
Yeah. Kat
And
does have a Facebook page. It's called Cataleya's Crusade. And so we've been utilizing that page ever since our journey with NF started as our means of being able to, promote awareness around neurofibromatosis.
Since I think it was about like what, 2, 3, maybe?
Yeah, 2. Yeah.
all right, well, I'm gonna join that and start following. I see questions already starting to come, but I'm gonna ask a few more because just some general ones. Krista, what's it like for you to see your family story and your daughter's story and sharing such vulnerable?
Yeah. I'm just like you. Every time I see it, I cry. The film crew just did an amazing, an amazing thing just to be able to tell our story, like the way that they produced it and everything. It just really sheds a light on neurofibromatosis and, not just our story, but, there was a story on another one that had NF2, Nick, his story. It was just so interesting. I think what it did is it really brought some awareness to me personally that like I'm friends with Kim and other NF moms. So that the NF moms go through a lot of this and the dads as well. Don't want to leave them out. But what it really did do is shed light on the siblings and the struggles the siblings have. And, because for the longest time, I just felt like this horrible parent because as you can see with Elena, she was talking about how she struggled. And so I think being able to share that broadly, whether or not you have NF or any other kind of serious illness, the siblings are really impacted. It's not just, the mom and the dad and the child or person that has the illness. It's a whole thing.
I was heartbroken, but loved that Elena shared that. I think the movie touches on so many, and I know Elaine was so great. She tried to have the filmmakers join us today, but they're already filming another documentary. But I think it was so beautifully edited because so many important topics get brought up. And I want to touch on a moment because it was a question I was going to ask and it got called out by my colleague Philip about how many people use their disabilities as a superpower. Philip shares he's hard of hearing and he is one of them. How do you describe your superpower in that? What are the special? I was thinking about different like Wonder Woman and different, strengths and skills and special abilities they have. How do you describe this as your superpower and what it allows you to do?
Well, with me having a disability, I was kind of telling my mom this too, actually, a couple of days ago, that like I feel like I kind of connect with like other kids with disabilities more. Like, I feel like I can get along with them more than like the other kids that don't have any disabilities. And like there's this school that I kind of went to just for like a short course, WSSB, Washington State School for the Blind, and being there kind of impacted me too, and kind of seeing like what other people with disabilities were, and to tell my story and for them to tell theirs. That's kind of like my superpower is kind of telling them about my conditions and them telling their superpower. I just think everyone has a superpower, they just don't see it or can't find it yet.
I think one of Kat's superpowers, honestly, is her ability to connect with people. You know, she just has, you know, and Elena kind of touched on it within the documentary itself too, is no matter what you're going through, you know, Kat is just so able to just like bond with people and loves them for who they are, you know, and no matter how different they are, right? And just her disposition is her superpower. Being able to go through something that is so hard and difficult, and having the disposition that she does is like, it's very touching. It's one of the things that I love the most about her is that compassion, that love, and that spirit that she has, given everything that she's going through.
And I always help people too, like even if they don't say it or if they're just having a bad day and I can see it, you know, I'm like, are you doing okay? You look sad. And they're like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I'm like, well, you don't look fine and I know you're not fine. And they say, I won't understand, but I say, I may not understand, but it's nice to talk about it. And then they sometimes can tell me, and then I'm like, you know, well, you know, like your family loves you, you know, like I'm always here for you. I'm, you know, yeah.
That truly is the ability not just to connect, but through sharing your story, inviting and making it safe for other people to share their story. And already I'm looking at the chat line, and it really, I see my friend Esther shared how she can relate to your playground experiences, as she also has her own superpower. There's a question, and I actually want to ask it both, Krista, to you and Kim. I Because Kim, you're also a mom of a child with NF, and there's a question about how your physicians sort of reacted. And so I think I'll first do a general question to you. How is this similar or different to your experience with your son? Because then I want to go into this question about the physician reaction when your children were younger in getting the diagnosis.
Yes. So, you know, I mean, our stories are very similar. My son, who's now 24, was diagnosed when he was 18 months old and was also diagnosed with a brain tumor at the same time. He's been through a lot throughout the years. He's had 21 surgeries, and 12 of those have been brain surgeries. He is dealing with epilepsy right now. And so they're very similar, but every patient with NF is also very different in the way that they present. So it's difficult to treat all NF patients as a whole. So it's almost like customizing these treatments, but it's a day-to-day process. You know, it's as a caregiver, as a mom, you know, like Krista said in the documentary, I am scared almost daily of what's going to happen because we don't know what's to come. And that, I think, is the hardest thing to deal with.
And I know you have, I know some of the other participants on the line, we have on the chat line and participating, I know we have other medical moms out there. And so this question for both you and Krista, how was that experience with working with the provider community, especially early on, in terms of taking your concerns seriously and getting to this diagnosis? Because I know there's been, I watched Parvati is on, and she has showed me the roadmap to serious and rare diseases, and it can be a bumpy road to even get to where you need to be to start treating.
Well, for me, it was my sister, who was my son's pediatrician, who actually unofficially diagnosed him. and led us to the correct place where he could be officially diagnosed. And I have to say that he's just ended up in great places along the line with a great medical team, who has taken care of him. And from the start, it has been a very serious diagnosis for his care team.
Krista, how was it for you? And I know as we were prepping it, I talked to our clinical practice group, and they were specifically curious. They're like, how was the provider community in this? How were
Yeah.
they supportive? How were they complicated?
Oh my gosh, absolutely fantastic. So first of all, I have to say, and I think during the edit process, some of this got cut out, but actually what brought it to my attention was Kat had pulmonary valve stenosis when she was 2 months old. And it was actually the cardiologist that we went to that noticed her spots and said, hey, if she gets more of these, let your provider know, right? And so when I went to, and then of course, by then, a few months passed, 6 months, or not 6 months, she was 6 months old. And it was like, all of a sudden, all of these spots were all over her. And so, I went to my, my primary because we had to get a referral up to Seattle Children's, and they had no problem doing that. We got up there, and Seattle Children's has really become our home. They are phenomenal. And Amy Sato, who you saw in that video, top notch. Best doctor.
amazing.
Oh God, yes. They're like best doctor I have ever worked with. That team, that brain tumor team, just has been following Kat's journey since she's 2 years old. And
Always reaching out when we need
yeah, I
them.
mean, like I remember just recently, like we had some struggles, with Kat, and one of the last some mental health struggles that she was going through. And we, went and saw her care team, and Amy was there, and Amy was crying. She was just like, I am so sorry. I mean, she just has this enormous amount of love and care for Kat. It's phenomenal. I couldn't even ask. I would never move. She's that amazing. I would follow her wherever she went. In fact, I do have to tell you guys this. I went to New Orleans a month or so ago, and it just so happened when I was at Seattle, the brain tumor team was on the same flight as me. So like Dr. Sarah Leary, her oncology nurse, Corey Hepburn, they were all on there. Amy, we all met for drinks when we were in New Orleans. It was awesome.
And my mom sent me a picture, and I said, of course, one time I didn't want to go on a business trip with you. You met my doctors.
The whole team was there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bring Cheryl in to this as well, and then come back and again,
yeah, absolutely,
all kinds of questions, and folks on the chat line, if you want to add yours in as well. And then Vanessa and Kim, there's more coming your way. But Cheryl, you've had a different experience. This highlights the pediatric world, and I'm wondering kind of the similarities or differences that you experience with Kevin and being I don't know, medical wife, caregiver. I mean, it's a different world, but I know that you all have been dancing together in Seattle. So how have you connected?
Well, I think it is very different. When I met him, I think he told me about the NF, but that was almost 26, 27 years ago. I lost count because it's been so long. But then I had never heard of it before. And back then I didn't really look into it too much. It just didn't, I had a whole bunch of other things going on at the time. And it wasn't really a thing until more, I don't know, it was about maybe 20 years ago. I'm trying to remember, but when he had started getting the headaches, and they did the scan, and then they found, and this was 15 years ago, actually, this year, that they found the brain tumor. And so it was kind of around that time frame, I think, that I really started looking more into the NF, trying to find like support groups or providers. That is the hardest thing. And I think for the difference between the adults and the kids is there's not a lot of medical folks out there for the adults. It seems, at least from what I've been able to see, there's more for the kids, which is great. But then it's like the adults, you know, they're kind of lost out there. And so we have, you know, Kevin has a provider up in Seattle. He's got a couple down here where we live, but there's not really anybody truly, you know, that's a specialist. And it's actually kind of interesting that how my world and his world have kind of come together, because I was a part of this Instagram group for weight loss for bariatric surgery. And I actually met a gal during one of the meetups a few years ago, and her daughter both have NF. So it's just so bizarre to meet all these people that have this. And it's like, I'd never heard of it before. But so that type of support is great. It's just, it is very hard not having that medical support, I think, for the adults.
And I think it's a really interesting point. And we, the North Carolina Caregiving Collaborative, we talk a lot, and we are a general group. So we bring forth folks that are in the serious illness space and the caregiving space for older adults, for young children, for those with physical disabilities, those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And our very first meeting, we got together and we all shared our stories, and a number of us started to see, well, where are there similarities? We all have differences in the specific diagnoses and the issues, but where are there similarities? And what you and Krista and Kat and Elena shared is this issue of support and social support. And I think we can kind of, I want to touch on one and then go to you talked about the complexities of the medical support. That's a whole other world of advocacy and education. And so I want to talk about the importance of this documentary. But where have you found social support for all of you, whether it's you, Kat, living with this serious illness, or Kim and Cheryl and the trifectas of the cuss sounds, that Krista and Cheryl and Kim and Elena, the social support for what you're going through as family caregivers, sort of what has worked and what hasn't worked?
I think for me, honestly, like, you know, there's a lot of support groups that are on Facebook, you know, and those are helpful, but, you know, I am going to call out Kim, like, I was so happy when we got to go do the documentary out in Pennsylvania. Oh, I'm going to cry just because it was so nice to spend that time with Kim and be able to share all of the things that we had going on, you know, because nobody understands it other than the people that are going through it, right? And so, you know, like even Cheryl over on her side, you know, it's like people just don't understand the amount of stress, I guess is the right word for it, that you go through with caring for, you know, a loved one. I mean, and luckily for me, you know, I grew up, you know, my dad worked with developmentally disabled, like that was his forte. That's what he did. And so, you know, I saw a lot of the struggles, you know, that the families went through. I never ever knew that my family was going to be one of them. Right. And so it's getting involved with CTF. They have been fantastic. One of the best nonprofit organizations I have, you know, had the privilege of working with. And then, of course, going to these events, like being able to, you know, meet other people with NF and other kids with NF and other parents and adults. Like I have so many adult friends that have NF. It's fantastic. And they've been great resources for cats. You know,
talk to them if they're struggling. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
I hadn't even thought about that. So folks like Kevin and others who have gone through this journey for a long time and being, you know, we talk about the term I use daily in conversation, and we use it with the Caregiving Collaborative. I do it on my emails when I talk with folks, is you are not alone. And then I don't know why, but I'm thinking of that Jelly Roll song, I Am Not Okay. And I'm wondering if that's like the new anthem for a lot of that. Sorry to get super contemporary with that song if you haven't heard it, but that sense of how do we support each other and say, you know, you are not alone. I am there for you. I do wonder, oh, Cheryl, did you want to say something?
I was just going to add to what Krista said about the caregiving. And I'm going to try not to cry. I always do because it's
You
just
always
so
cry
much.
during the meetings, right, Karen? I don't think there's a caregiving collaborative meeting someone doesn't lose it. You are among friends.
It's just hard to talk about because it's just such a it's a it's a huge part of your life that you don't realize. And I think for at least for me and maybe for Kevin, and there's so many things. And I don't know with Kat if she has the same things, but the amount of pain that they're in all the time. And, and when you look at them, like with Kevin, he looks perfectly normal, looks perfectly fine, doesn't look like there's anything because he just doesn't. But it's like nobody, like you said, nobody understands how hard it is to be the one taking care of those people. It's so hard because you just don't know. And I did this before, but with Elaine, if it wasn't for Elaine, I wouldn't have gotten through what we had to go through with his brain cancer and everything. And it's that kind of support. And then meeting folks like Krista and Kat that, I mean, that has helped so much, and Kevin is very we're very different people. He's very introverted. I'm very extroverted. And so he doesn't talk about the NF very much. And, maybe if he wasn't at work, he might have been able to hop on here, but I don't know. He's just doesn't really talk about it a lot. And I think and I know it's a lot of it is because of the worry. His father had NF, and that's where he had got it from, was his dad, who was Elaine's brother. And next week it'll be 15 years since he passed, and so it's really hard for him. And so I do all of it, the talking, and I do all of the reaching out and trying to find trials or clinical trials or doing whatever I can to try to figure out something to help him and others that have NF like that. So sorry.
No, there's no sorry. And I am going to quote the chat line, which quotes Kat. So Karen just put, as Kat said in the documentary, when you cry, it shows more bravery than when you cry. So you are showing your bravery. And then, as Jessica has said, releasing tears mean you are releasing prayers for help, change, and hope. Never apologize for being human. So you are among friends and you are an extrovert like me. And as extrovert, we get our energy from others. So I'm hoping you're feeling energy and support from all the folks on here, because you are not on an easy road. And a lot of folks on this can nobody can truly understand your story, but they understand on different levels. I do want to ask on this advocacy world, and then we'll come back. I want to bring Vanessa, your voice into it, and Kim, because the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition, we are really focused on advocacy and sharing stories in order to promote meaningful change. I would like to dive a little bit into the Children's Tumor Foundation, and thanks to my awesome Aunt Elaine, how you were able to use this to help to promote, and what are your hopes from this documentary in terms of your education advocacy work?
I'll start, Kim, and then you can jump in with anything I leave out, which I'm sure will be plenty. But first of all, it's wonderful to hear all these just the beautiful remarks about storytelling, because it's just so important to us at Children's Tumor Foundation at CTF to be telling patient stories. Our mission and so much of our focus is on funding research into treatments for neurofibromatosis and schwannomatosis. But a major aspect of that is indeed to really be the voice of the patient and really take that to we are in Washington and advocating to the CDMRP for affirmative defense money. We're advocating for pharma, for attention. When you're serving a rare disease, it's been a challenge over the years, which is one of the wonderful things that Children's Tumor Foundation has done, which is to bring so much awareness to NF. And now so many companies and researchers are interested in NF, which is wonderful. And then I want to also just take it back to Elaine. I mean, it all really starts really with Elaine and individuals like her who have really a mission and a passion to really share, to find creative and interesting ways to get this kind of story out so that people can see themselves. And, whenever we watch a documentary, it's like we're watching Kat and we're watching Krista, but we're seeing ourselves, we're seeing our own pain, we're seeing, that this is a family that understands. And even if their story doesn't mirror mine, it's, I get it. Like this is people that get it, and you feel so seen. Just watching someone else's story is such an important part of healing in the process. So it was really a privilege when Elaine, raised her hand to say, well, what I'd really like to do is I'd really like to create some videos. I manage the video strategy at CTF, so I was thrilled. And she's been a delight to work with, and brought in two of her very close friends who are the filmmakers, which unfortunately aren't here. Obviously, they're very gifted. I think their work speaks for themselves. And they have an incredible empathy and compassion for the people whose stories they tell. So I think one of the reasons that this documentary is so compelling is that we knew Kat and Krista and the other family that they mentioned, which I would like to address, because there were two documentaries in this gift from the Altmans, which is, so just like we just watched Kat and Krista, there's another entire documentary about a young man named Nick Lindenbach, which is very compelling and beautiful. But we knew Kat and Krista, and they've been so giving with their story, and exactly what Krista was saying about Kat, like just so magnetic and so open, that the combination of their story with the incredible empathy of our filmmakers just really made this beautiful, beautiful film.
Can I add something here?
Yes, please.
In terms of the use of the films for education, etc. My hope is that these films will be shown in schools, especially in schools that are attended by students who have NF, as a way of, reaching out to people for more understanding and of this disease and what it's like to live with it. Especially kids, kids in school who need to see this, I think.
I love that idea. And for me, it's not just about NF. It is about all children that are living with illness or disabilities or superpowers. Let me call it that, what it is, all children, because I think the story has a universal feel about it, of understanding and empathy, and just seeing that we're all going through something different and how to support each other through it. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
What are other ways that
my field is speech and language pathology? And so, I worked with a lot of patients who were having issues like this. They had these problems. It was hard for people to know what they were all about, and they needed to be educated really as to, what's going on with these people who have disabilities.
I think what Elaine is saying too, is so powerful and true. And that is something that, like I said, Kat's so good at, in her school. She was just talking about just the other day about how she wants to, get announcements and stuff like that, on the speaker about it. And, she was talking the same thing. We were going to show the video last year, and then we had a family emergency come up, and so we couldn't do it. But that education's a big thing, because kids, not just from that standpoint of like looking for, spreading awareness more about NF, but also just spreading awareness about not just the condition, but educating people, because people don't know why Kat's walking down, the school with a cane, right? She's in middle school now. Not everybody's heard Kat's story, where when this was filmed, she was in elementary school, so everybody knew Kat, right? And so now this is a great opportunity for her, to start telling the story. And, one of the things that I said at the film festival, and I want to call this out too, because you talked about the importance of advocacy and awareness, right? When Kat first got diagnosed, and, I was involved with CTF for her optic pathway gliomas, which is the tumors that she has, there were only a few lines of treatment available to them. So, think about that. When she started that first chemo, she's 3, she's 11. 5 years ago, 5 from, I think, right, 5 it is when, cellumetinib, hit the market as a, wonder drug for kids with NF, or adults even with NF, because, it's just been a fantastic drug for them. They're seeing all these results. Kat's tumors have been stable. She has to take it every day, but her optic pathway glioma has remained stable. And so that was in part because of donations that we've received, throughout the community, through all the awareness campaigns, all the advocacy campaigns. It's important because those are what lead to these groundbreaking treatments. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, not just from a standpoint of educating and, people about it, but the importance of, the research that's behind it.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to jump on the advocacy issue because, Vanessa, you talked about the importance of raising awareness and sharing all these stories. And literally, we named the symposium Joining Our Voices because it's around sort of raising up voices, but then what do we do with that? And where is there education among providers and educators, schools? And then where's their actual advocacy on a political landscape? And so the fact, and I'm thinking about the fact because Karen Appert and I in 2 weeks are going to Washington, D.C. for the National Alliance of Caregivers. It is Family Caregiver Month as of today, November is. And so, looking at legislatively, and then I want to get back to the medical advocacy. I know we're right now putting our priorities together, our public policy priorities. Do you have a list of things that you're really encouraging, whether it's clinical trials or pharma or funding? What does that advocacy look like for any of you? But I know, Vanessa, you mentioned that.
Well, from our foundation level, we have a team that also joins you in Washington and advocates for funding from the Department of Defense. So it's absolutely not funding that Children's Tumor Foundation is going to benefit from at all. It's funding for NIH and just other attentions, because we feel like as much as we can grow the field and get as much attention toward the field and as much money funneling into the field of treatments for not just NF, but all rare disease, then it benefits us all. So we do that at sort of like a top level. And then we're constantly advocating at a personal level for, creating greater awareness, bringing, we have a clinic, NF clinic network where we're funding clinics to ensure that they have the latest guidelines in terms of care guidelines, because so often it's difficult with a rare disease like NF for people to find that specialty care that they need. So spreading that, awareness that way. And then, and you're right, Elaine, we created a Classrooms That Care program, which is where the initial spark of these documentaries began. That is currently managed by a group of NF organizations. So we kind of have a collaboration of NF groups that work together to get this this kind of it's almost like a curriculum of information that we've put together that these films are a part of into schools, and usually that's quite managed by volunteers and usually families and caregivers who are eager to get the word out. But these films are part of those assets that work for schools.
I have to say, and feel free if others want to jump in with questions, you kind of threw me with the Department of Defense. What? Out of all the departments, we do Administration of Community Living, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, NIH I was ready for. I was not ready for the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
Back up a little bit. What's their, I'm all for whatever you're doing, but how did they get involved?
It's the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, so the CDMRP. And it's a I'm probably not explaining it very well because, but it's a part of the Department of Defense. So it's not about war, but that is where the funding actually funnels out.
And my good friend Parvati just jumped in. Yes, funding for rare diseases and NIH comes from there. I know my colleague who's a big HIV and AIDS researcher, she did work with the Department of Defense. Okay, so that's all. The other big advocacy issue that we see here in North Carolina, and I'm not sure if it's as big a deal in Washington, but I'm assuming it might be, which is Medicaid, because a lot of the personal care support, a lot of the nursing and aid support, and I will say this wrong, Parvati, I know, feel free to correct me, it comes through Medicaid, and there's a lot of complexity with eligibility, access, and we have really long, like 10-year plus long wait lists. And so for us, a lot of the advocacy we're doing here on the state level is about getting more people off the wait list and getting them the services they're actually eligible for. And then we had a whole other session on Monday about a whole other issue is then the direct care workforce. But do you find that so the question in that is Medicaid also an issue or the government funded support, or do you have to all work within a private network, your own private insurance and things like that?
Man, I don't know if Kim or Cheryl want to share because like we're in private healthcare, so Kat's not eligible. And now she is eligible within the school district to receive services. So she receives services from the school for the blind, and her orientation and mobility.
Monitors, like that.
Monitors all the accommodations and stuff that she needs, and luckily, like I was saying before too, my family's background has a long standing history of, my sister's the director in the state of Montana for their special education, so she's great for me in navigating schools and stuff like that. And then my dad, if he was still alive, probably would be beneficial in that area. But yeah, Kim, I don't know if.
No, we also go through private insurance, but being that my son is 24 and he will be kicked off of our insurance in a couple of years, we are starting that journey of looking into what do we do when that happens. So more to come on that, hopefully. But yeah, I know that's a big issue for a lot of patients.
Yeah, it's really, it's a lot of our conversations here when we're looking at serious illness care, support for family caregivers, and workforce issues. For us, it links a lot to the Medicaid world.
For Kevin, he's on my insurance through my, employer. And then he actually, because he is on disability, also gets Medicare. So once you're on disability for so many years, you automatically get put on Medicare. And so that's because he's able to work part-time, thankfully. One of the other things that I had found, I had gone out and tried to find him something because he couldn't do his usual full-time job that he had done. And he was going to go nuts if he stayed home all the time. And he had volunteered. I work for a hospital system here, and he had volunteered for a little while. And then I was able to find this, it's developmental, it's a program that they have here for folks who are disabled. And so he works for a company who only hires disabled people. And so thankfully, and he's been there for 10 years. So it's been great.
Well, and we're seeing, I'm so glad you're able to bring in the support you're needing. You are seeing in the chat line, folks are saying in here in North Carolina, it's the healthcare workers to be able to have the extra care, the extra set of hands. So you're not doing it. That's where for us, it goes through a lot of the CAP is community alternative programs. I think I'm saying it right, CAP-C Medicaid. And so the complexities. I'd love to ask a question of each of you that I know we've asked in our other panels of the other sessions of the symposium. What would meaningful change look like? for each of you or your organizations? Whoever wants to jump in on that one first.
I think I'll go first because I think that way we can end on Kat and Krista, who I think everyone want to hear them. But I mean, just for us, similar to what you've been talking about, but that we want the difficulty of explaining NF and to NF is such a hard to explain condition. I have a son. I've loved part of this conversation because I wear a different hat. I have a son who has an intellectual disability and a developmental disability, and it's actually, I compare on my work at CTF very often. I'm like, that is so definable that I can define that in such a way, whereas in my job working with CTF and defining NF is so hard to define. And so I think that very often advocating for Medicaid, the special education, is even more of a struggle with that when that definition is it's so varied in terms of the different symptoms that people have. And, every person with NF is very different from every other person with NF. So I think that would make a huge change for us, is just have more awareness and getting over that hurdle to get care because no one's heard of it and no one knows anything about it, and kind of getting it into the forefront of people's minds. That would be a big step forward for us.
And I will add that yesterday's session was all on the future of AI to improve care and caregiving. And the speaker talked about, and Mitchell might be on here, going actually onto, I think it was, Chat GPT, and said, I want you to explain dementia for an 8-year-old. How would you describe it? And so for fun, after this, go on to Chat GPT and ask how would you describe and define NF to an 8-year-old? And did a really thoughtful, within a few moments, talking about the brain like a train station and able to put it into really easy to understand. So I might try that later too. So I do want to give a shout out to yesterday's session on how we can add, how we can use AI to add, some understanding to really complex topics. So I just thought about that immediately. But others of you, what would meaningful change look like? Kim?
I will go meaningful change, kind of on the same lines as Vanessa. It would be making neurofibromatosis a household name, so everybody knows about it. And I have seen over the past 24 years, I've seen a big change. When my son was diagnosed, I didn't know what it meant. Everybody I talked to had no idea. They've never heard of it. But now I walk down the street, and if somebody asked me about it, they were like, oh yeah, my best friend's son has it. It's that circle is closing, and it's great to see, but I would love to have it as a household name, and then eventually find that cure and an end to NF.
Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in on that too, because when you were talking about AI, so a couple things like, I have a strong IT background, so I love ChatGPT and I love AI. I think AI is, I should have, if I wasn't writing an RFP, would have joined the session yesterday. Because I think AI is going to be a game changer in the medical field, right? Being able to do additional analysis on labs and things, and being able to create like a super computing system where you can put in all of that data and maybe it'll come up with a cure. That's my hope. And my secondary hope to that is, kind of to what, Cheryl was talking about and Kim is experiencing, is that adult care, because pediatricians are fantastic right now, right? For kids, but having that adult care and that transition, so it feeds into everything that Vanessa and Kim said too. So if you make it a household name, maybe that'll mean that there's more care available for those, adults. Cause, I saw somebody posted in the chat too, one of the other things that people struggle with as you're an adult is getting a job, right? And with NF, it can be very disfiguring. And so sometimes that is put off by employers and stuff, right? So I think that's another thing that I really bring to the table and stuff too, because I worked for the state of Washington Employment Security for 27 years out here. Now I work for monster.com, but being able to use like Kat's story, not just her NF story, but her story of her vision impairment, and utilize that to like help spread more awareness to even employers, right? So that people can start understanding like, oh, just because she has NF or is disfigured doesn't mean she still can't do this job, right? And so I think that's really important. That's the change that I want to see, because I want people with disabilities, to be able to have that chance out there.
Absolutely. Cheryl, did you want to talk about what meaningful change looks like?
I think what Krista just said, and I do think that the medical care, I think that would be the biggest thing, is having someone who is in the medical world that knows more about the NF and can help treat it, or, can help. If there was a provider, it's terrible because we find a provider, we thought we found one, and then he moved. And, or we find someone who works well, or, because Kevin's had to go and have a few of them removed. And then that person leaves. And it's just that consistency, the lack of the consistency of having someone as the provider. And, again, nobody knows. And even when I've talked to medical providers, my husband has a neurofibromatosis, and they look at me kind of like, what is that? And, and I work for a hospital, and that's actually it's interesting because my job title, I guess, in some places is a patient advocate. It's patient relations. And so it's basically dealing with people's complaints, but still I do advocate for patients. And so having Kevin have this disorder has made things really different for me at work too. But I do think that having more support as far as medical care is definitely something that is needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just want to add something here also that actually is very interesting in terms of the connections among several of us in this on this panel. And that several years ago, when Cheryl was faced with dealing with this brain tumor of Kevin's, she came to me and asked if, I knew someone, I could connect her with someone that she could talk to about it, who was knowledgeable. And I turned to your dad, Heather.
Oh.
I think at the time he was connected with UNC.
Yes.
And he put Cheryl, he put me in touch with someone that I put Cheryl in touch with, who was able to give her some good advice and counseling on what Kevin was facing.
And
we're all trying to maximize whatever connections and resources
right.
that we all have.
And it was actually pretty darn amazing that I connected with those folks at North Carolina, because Kevin's brain tumor was initially diagnosed as a glioblastoma, which is the worst brain tumor that you can get, very, very short prognosis. And I didn't believe them. I didn't want to believe them. And so when I had reached out to Elaine and she got me connected out there, I actually sent the slides from the pathology out to North Carolina. And the surgeon who did Ted Kennedy's brain tumor surgery actually reviewed those and gave us the proper diagnosis. So thankfully it wasn't that. It was a rare brain tumor, but still it wasn't that. So it is those connections. Those are absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then Elaine, meaningful change for you. And then there's a follow-up question I'm going to ask all of you about meaningful change.
Well, I think I've kind of hinted at this earlier in terms of the education and exposing young people more to, handicaps and rare illnesses, diseases, etc., so that they can be more compassionate and understanding towards their fellow students. I think for me, I would like to see certainly more of that.
And
Something-
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, something life changing for me, what I would like to see is, I get emotional with this, but for kids to understand that just because somebody has a disability doesn't mean they're any different, and that because I have trouble fitting in a lot, with having a condition. And what hurts me the most is that, like, when I'm using, like, is that when I use my cane around the school, that kids, they just like bump into me or they're stepping over my cane or kicking my cane. Like, you don't do that. And it hurts my feelings. And when some people don't want to be my friend because I have a disability, it hurts. Like, not many people invite me to their birthdays, but then they talk about it and it just hurts my feelings. Like, I'm a normal kid, and that's what I want to feel like. I can still see, I can still talk. I just can't do as many things as you guys can.
Oh, Kat, we love you. And I know I'm not the only one here who wants to give you a big hug and a big mom thing. I have two girls that went through middle school years. You are going into that quirky middle school girl time, and you take whatever power you can get from your My Superpower to help them understand. And it does get better. And middle school kids are awful. I don't know what to tell you, but we are just so here for you. And I know that you are a Philip, your friend who's been put on the chat. You are growing up in a world, he put, that is more accessible for visually impaired people than it used to be. And so we do have the Americans with Disability Act. And so while it's more accessible for you, but what we now have to work on, and what Elaine was just speaking at in terms of the education schools, is to have students understand it. And you are in a time where everybody's into labels and everyone's into their identity. I don't want to say politics, though politics make sure everybody goes votes. But this is your cool label. And you wear it like a cape with your superpower. And as you said, everyone is struggling with something. And so it's having them see, hopefully, that your honesty will allow them. But come and have a party with us. We all invite you to our birthday parties, and we are all here for you. Oh. I know that there was a follow-up question about meaningful change for family caregivers. And again, it is Family Caregiver Month. I know that we're so interested in that topic here. For those of you who are also caregivers, what would meaningful change look like in terms of the support in your caregiving roles? You see some examples in the chat, like respite, or for me, I'm also a family caregiver, and there was some real specific training I needed, like time off. What are the things that that meaningful change would look like as caregivers?
I think that's a hard question to answer. I mean, for me, meaningful change for me would be an N to NF, because I don't know how, even if my son is doing really well, I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
And like I said before, that is the hardest thing to deal with. And because of that and that uncertainty, I feel like I can never fully relax or stop thinking about it. So that it's a hard question for me personally to answer.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Kim in that area and stuff too. That was something that I think the both of us really kind of touched on during our drive to Pennsylvania and stuff, is, the meaningful change is ending NF, having an effective treatment, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and that's the really sad reality, specifically with NF. So there are people that live really long lives, and there are other people Just like recently, Joe Jaffa, I worked with Kim and him down in California on some advocacy things and, he just passed away this last year. What was he like 20, 24, 25 or something, Kim? He was pretty young.
33.
At 30. Okay. Yeah. He was pretty young, but that's hard pill to swallow.
Well, and yeah, it's hard. I was thinking back to one of our family caregiver meetings, and we more talked about like what wasn't helpful when people are like, oh, you should go have a spa day. And we're like, okay, no, Karen's smiling on that. I mean, actually, I would always like a spa day. That's enjoyable. But people are like, go make time for yourself. Go do that. And people are like, I'm doing 24/7 caregiving. I can't make time for myself. I can't just get a spa day. And even that spa day isn't going to take away the intensity. So, okay. And Kat, there's still so much love coming for you on the chat line. Philip just added, Kat, growing up, I was the only hard of hearing person I knew until I attended a summer camp for deaf and hard of hearing children after the 7th grade. I didn't always like being hard of hearing, but then in college at William and Mary, people were very curious and told me they wanted to learn sign language, and it became a great way to make new friends. And I hope your superpower carries you far in your friendships.
Thank you.
I can tell you, and don't be offended when I say this, you guys, but one of other Kat's superpowers is with her cane, we discovered in Europe, it got us to the front of lines all the time. So it was an amazing superpower.
But it was like really hot, and I think we were in like the Vatican or something, and I didn't know if it was like my chemo or the heat, but like my head was hurting, my tummy was hurting, I felt nauseous, my legs were hurting, and so like we were going to go find a place to sit down, and one of the guards was like, here, come down here, and like we were able like to go down these like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like these beautiful like white.
It was a private area.
It was like for like it was just like these beautiful like white stairs you could go down, and the person that was whatever it's called, our guide was like, oh, in all the years I have never done this before, and it was amazing.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of support to take what you can get. And I don't know if you have gone to Disney World, but
oh yes.
Yeah, because when I went there, one of the years I went there, I went with my mom who was in a scooter and had needed issues, and we got to go right to the front of the line, and we were like, oh, it's fun to go around with you. So yes, use all the take all you can.
I did that for Kevin. Him and my son went to a concert, and the stadiums, because the steps are so steep, Kevin's balance, he has a lot of balance issues, so it's really hard for him. And so I told him, I said, go up to the desk. I wasn't with him, otherwise I would have done it, but go up to the desk, tell him that you need something a little bit. Oh my goodness, he was so excited, because then he sent me a picture of where they were sitting, and they had really, really good seats. And I don't like to try to like take advantage of that, but it's like it's helping him so that he can enjoy things the way that everybody else can. So may as well.
We're all permission to take advantage of it. Life is complicated enough. You get it. Yocasta did add in the chat in terms of other meaningful change, more funding for respite, so we caregivers could do more mental health hygiene as well, and well-being checkups, medical checkups. And so I know that there's so much, but I hear you loud and clear. The most meaningful change would be an end to NF and a cure. What I want to do now, I'm going to do two things as we start to close up. We have just a few minutes left. I did put a link in the chat line for an evaluation. So when folks get a chance, click on that and you can fill out an evaluation for this session. And I want to end with just a little bit of some positivity and hope. I love the last question that I like to ask, which is, and what gives you hope? What gives you hope for the future? Let's see. Elaine, I'll start with you since we ended with you. What gives you hope for the future? Because Kat, we're going to end with you, honey.
Well, with CTF, I've been really happy to see that their research efforts have expanded, not only in terms of, what they're researching, but their affiliations with other organizations to bring about change, to bring about, to discover new medications that can be used, that are maybe being used for another purpose now, but perhaps can be used for NF. And I'm really hopeful in this area about the kind of change that is going to happen, because it's these collaborations, I think, that are going to be really a big part of the future, with AI involved as well.
Vanessa,
feel like
the next.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I should follow that. Because I was gonna say that I would love to echo that. And I think that just speaking for me personally, what gives me hope is people like Elaine who come to the table with an incredible idea for change. And and even just now in what she just said, her acknowledgement of the work that the foundation that I'm working for, Children's Tumor Foundation, what we're doing, and the increased awareness about NF. And it's funny, I was just talking with our president, Annette Bacher, who's a dynamic speaker, and we were analyzing one of her speeches, and we said to her, Annette, everything you said was going to happen is happening. And it's just so hopeful. We have an approved drug. Another drug has been submitted for approval. We have an AI drug just got fast tracked by the FDA. So it's all just, it's a very hopeful time. And it's, and it's great. And it's because it's powered by people like Elaine, who are coming to the table and really believing that there is hope, and then there is change on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Kim, do you want to go next?
I will echo everything that both of them just said. It is not only CTF who gives me hope, and this is, working here as an NF mom it's unbelievable. I can see the change happening, and it's happening quicker and quicker. And Annette, our president, really gives me hope, because like Vanessa said, everything that she talks about that she wants to do is happening. And just to listen to her and what she wants to see happen over the next 5-10 years, I know that's going to come to fruition, and it gives me tremendous hope.
I love that. All right, Cheryl, do you want to share what gives you hope for the future?
I think having everybody share as much as they can about NF, and so that there's more awareness and visibility. And I think that really does give me a lot of hope. There's so many, there's just a lot, but that's pretty much the biggest thing right now, is just having that visibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Krista?
Yeah. So definitely making NF visible, just kind of echoing what everybody else has said, in this call, that gives me hope. The work that the Children's Tumor Foundation is doing, all of the awareness events, all of the fundraising events that we do, I love saying this during our events, the Kat would not be where she's at today without the support we've received from Children's Tumor Foundation in the research. And so I want to continue to see that. And, just was having a conversation with Kim yesterday about like wanting to be able to contribute more along the lines of research, because I want Kat to live a long and fruitful life. That's my hope.
All right.
My hope is kind of like what everybody else has said, to make NF visible. And sometimes what helps me, like when I'm having hard days, is like thinking that that Jesus, like he has a purpose, like we all have a purpose, and that maybe my purpose is spreading awareness for NF or helping other disabled people or just like, anything, spreading awareness for all the conditions or just anything. I mean, that's my hope, that people find that faith and can know about NF and to spread awareness for NF so then we can end it.
Well, what gives me hope for the future is that I know all of you, and I have this amazing network throughout North Carolina through the Serious Illness Coalition and the Caregiving Collaborative, but also now nationally and with my friends with all of you with the Children's Tumor Foundation. Elaine has been stuck with me for the past 54 years, and she keeps being stuck with me. But what gives me hope is that the more we share our stories, the more we see how we can work together and bring change. And I'm just so incredibly thankful. I know it's time to wrap up and close this session. I cannot thank you all, to all of our panelists, Children's Tumor Foundation, Elaine and Cheryl and Krista and Kat, especially you sharing your story. And everyone, go forth and use your superpowers.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I really, when my mom told me about this, I'm like, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.